This is Dr. Mercola, and wouldn't it be nice to avoid the hassle and inconvenience of ever having to have any more coughs, colds, or flus? Because, most uncomplicated colds can last between 8 and 9 days. But about 25% last 2 weeks or more, and 5 to 10% can last up to 3 weeks. So when you have a cold, you feel miserable, and you're clearly not functioning at your best. And frequently you're going to have to take off of work or cancel important appointments, and really you're feeling pretty miserable. Now, interestingly, I haven't taken a sick day off of work for over 30 years, and I haven't had any of these upper respiratory infections for many, many years. So what's my trick? What's the key? How do you optimize your immune system to help protect against these infections? Well, I'm going to share with you some of the key secrets on how you can do that. Probably one of the most important, and likely one of the reasons why we have such an increase in these upper respiratory infections in the fall and winter, is because the sun exposure really is minimized. First, for most of us, the sun's incidence of the rays coming through the atmosphere is such an angle that even if you were to go out without any clothes on for the entire day on a sunny day, you wouldn't get any significant ultraviolet radiation to increase your vitamin D levels. So essentially, it's physically impossible to get it from the sun during the winter for most of us. So that's probably one of the major reasons why there's this massive increase in these infections in the winter. So one of the ways that you can compensate for that, because really vitamin D is just a massively important tool to help minimize your risk of these infections. Clearly, during the summer and when you can, if you live in a semi-tropical environment, then clearly sun exposure is the ideal way. There's no charge for it except for your time. Make sure you have enough skin exposure and never get burnt. So another key approach is to limit the sugar in your diet, because sugar can absolutely wreak havoc in your immune system. About 100 years ago, the average amount of sugar, and specifically fructose, which seems to be one of the most pernicious sugars that Americans had in their diet, was only about 15 grams, and that was primarily from organic fresh vegetables. Not vegetables, but fruits. And I have no problems with consuming fruits in this manner when you're consuming them on a basal, low, background level of low amounts of sugar. But what's happened in the last century is that the average person in the United States is now consuming 75 grams of fructose a day. That's 500%, 5 times more than we were 100 years ago. So when you have fructose levels at this high level, it can actually devastate your health and your immune response. So I would strongly recommend to limit this as all possible. And this includes fruits, and we have charts on our site that can show you the actual levels of grams of fructose. Now, of course, you can go above that 15 grams of fructose per day, but if you do that on a regular basis, you're most likely going to have an impairment in your health. So I would strongly recommend against doing that. Another way that sugar impacts your health is to understand that about 80% of our immune response is a result of the functioning of our gut. And sugar is actually a fertilizer for these very dangerous pathogenic bacteria, yeast, fungi, and viruses that can really set up your system to be assaulted by these respiratory viruses. So it weakens it, and then you get exposed to these viruses, and then actually you can develop this infection. So it's really crucial to minimize your sugar intake and to also increase the fertilizer for the good bacteria, the probiotics. And one of the ways you do this is making sure you have plenty of good, healthy, fresh vegetables. Because the fiber in vegetables actually is a prebiotic. It serves as nutrient fertilizer growth material, substrate for the good bacteria. That's probably one of the major reasons why vegetables are so beneficial for you, because of their influence on your gut flora. Now, another incredibly important variable that many people don't necessarily fully appreciate is your sleep. Ideally, we should have about 7 hours or so, and maybe even up to 8 hours. If you're getting less than 6 hours, the evidence is very clear you're going to have an impairment of your immune system. If it's less than that, the worse it's going to be. And if you are working night shifts, that's another devastating assault to your immune system. So exercise is another tool that you can use to build it up, but you have to be a little bit cautious with exercise because it is a stressor. So if you are under stress, emotional stresses, or you're not sleeping, you're having a poor diet, and you exercise, you can actually trigger an infection. So it's really important, and one of the reasons that exercise works is that it increases your internal body temperature, very similarly to the way that our body does when we get a fever, and we use fever as a defense mechanism against these viruses and infections, because they're a little more susceptible to higher temperatures than our own body cells are. And one of the most important, of course, is stress. It's inevitable and unavoidable. Emotional stressors are just absolutely a profound influence on our health. And using tools like prayer or meditation or energy psychology can be a useful way to address these. So if you're following these lifestyle changes, the likelihood of you becoming sick is very low. Anything's possible, but you're essentially going to eliminate, for the most part, these infections. But, you know, it's a process, and not all of us are able to implement these changes immediately. And even if we are, you know, life is a journey and can throw us some curveballs, and our sleep patterns might be off. We might decide to binge on some sugar or whatever, and especially if you have the combination of these, we can get sick. So what do you use if you're sick? Well, fortunately, there are some useful supplement approaches that can be very beneficial to help your body reinforce its ability to fight infection. And one of the time-honored ones, of course, is vitamin C. Very potent antioxidants. I would recommend, however, to use a organic natural one, such as acerola, because it has associated micronutrients that can facilitate the improvement on your immune response. Now, with respect to dosages, you can take several grams every hour until you're better, unless you start to get some loose stools, because that's one of the side effects. Now, interestingly, there are some new liposomal preparations of vitamin C that can be very beneficial too, that tend to minimize or eliminate the loose stool side effect. Another useful tool is oregano oil. It's a potent antimicrobial agent, as is propolis, which is a bee resin and one of the most broad spectrum antimicrobial compounds in the world. It's really been shown to aid in the immune response, so it's a very helpful tool, as is olive leaf extract. And the ancient Egyptians and the Mediterranean cultures used it for a variety of health-promoting uses, and is widely known as a natural, non-toxic immune system builder. Zinc can be particularly useful too. You have to be a bit careful in picking the specific types of zinc, but it can be another helpful tool. Another non-supplement trick that you can use for an acute infection, upper respiratory infection, coughs, colds, or flus, would be hydrogen peroxide. That's the peroxide that's probably in your medicine cabinet. And the way you would use it is you wouldn't swallow it, but you would take it and pour a very small amount into a capful. And you don't want to pour it from the bottle because you'll spill it, but just take a capful and pour half a cap into your ear canal by putting your head on its side and just dipping it in and then holding it there for several minutes. And you'll hear it bubble, and that means it's working. And just keep it there for several minutes, and then you turn your head on the other side and put it on the other ear. And it's been particularly effective, and it works the better the sooner you use it in the course of the illness. So if you've had the infection for a week or so, it's not going to be as helpful typically. But I first put this on the website about at least 10, 12 years ago, and then became aware that it might be an urban legend, so I removed it from the site. But we had received hundreds of responses from patients and readers of the newsletter that this worked, and through the years we found it to be a very reliable and effective and inexpensive, safe, non-toxic strategy that you can use. So those are the strategies you can use if you're sick. Now, another supplement that can be used proactively to build up your immune system is an emerging one, and you may have heard about it, and that is mushroom. Because there's over 300 different species of mushrooms that are now thought to have potential for promoting human health. And the evidence continues to emerge confirming how mushrooms and their proteins, their trace minerals, and their polysaccharides, amino acids, and their fiber actually promote your overall health. So there's some other compounds that are found in mushrooms that are now believed to help. And they do this in a number of ways. They do this by promoting normal cellular function. They protect against environmental stressors, and they support your body's normal detoxification process. They promote optimal digestion, and as I mentioned previously, they support healthy gut flora, which is where about 80% of your immune response lies. So wouldn't it make sense that a tool that's designed to support your gut flora is going to improve your immune response, and that's exactly one of the ways that mushrooms work. But remember, the basic process is going to be following the lifestyle changes, because that's the key, the foundation, the building blocks to supporting your immune system. And that will not only set you up to protect you against developing these infections in the future, but these same principles will build your body up, so it will protect you against all the chronic degenerative diseases, such as cancer, heart disease, diabetes, and Alzheimer's. So you'll be able to live longer, healthier, and more enjoyable, higher quality life, that it won't have to suffer these inconveniences and challenges that many people do when they don't follow these. So hopefully this has been a useful information, some basic tips that you can use to keep yourself healthy and support your immune system, because the key is to take control of your health.